There's a phrase often used that people fall into sin. But the truth is, people don't fall into sin, they choose to sin. So that begs the question, what makes a man choose to say yes to that which he should say no? What makes a man who truly loves God choose to sin? A healthy man doesn't just wake up one day and commit a life-altering sin unless he isn't as healthy as he thinks he is. As we begin the story of my restoration, in order to fully understand what's taken place, we must first get to the root and answer a very important question. How did we get here? In gaming, repairing your broken armor is as easy as the click of one button. But in life, repairing what's been broken is a process that's done piece by piece. Recently, I made the biggest mistake of my life. I damaged my marriage, my church, my community, and left my life in pieces. And now it's up to me to repent. Although the story starts with despair, as I put my trust in God, watch as He renews, rebuilds, and repairs that which has been broken. This is a story of hope. This is my road to restoration. I can remember over 7 years ago, first discovering Twitch for the first time. I was watching a streamer by the name of Summit1G, and he was streaming to over 25,000 people at the time, believing what I think was CSGO back in the day, popular way back then when Twitch was very different than it is now. And I remember going on the platform, I didn't actually even really understand what Twitch was. I found it on Google, logged on, and I thought, oh wow, this is so cool. I could see the live chat. Look at all these people watching this YouTube video, but instead of watching a video alone, they're watching it together. And I remember seeing everyone talk to each other, and people started asking questions, and I was like, wow, this is so cool, man. They're talking to each other, engaging, asking each other, and then all of a sudden, Summit answered the question. And at that moment, I realized, man, this is live interaction. And my mind was blown and immediately asked myself the question, can you imagine if live in the moment that this gamer was sharing the story of Jesus live with all of these people? And from that moment forward, I knew this is what I was called to do. And I remember talking to my wife and asking, hey, can I get an Xbox with a camera, Xbox Connect? And can I try this whole streaming thing and going live on Twitch maybe once, twice a week, and just while I'm playing games, I'll just talk to people about Jesus. And December 19th, 2014, I went live on Twitch for the first time ever, and we started interacting with people and building relationships and sharing the story of Jesus, and more people started coming, and more, and turned into more and more, until eventually we had reached so many people for Jesus, it really created an opportunity for us to be able to do this full time. But in order to really make something of this, I had a conversation with my wife Amanda and said, hey, I think we can really turn this into something. Will you give me 5 years of grinding to build something that not only will reach people for Jesus, but could eventually end up providing a life for our family, which is something that I want to do. And my wife, in all of her grace and all of her generosity, said, you know what? We'll give this 5 years of you being able to work a lot to be able to build this for the glory of God. But what the agreement meant for my wife was that I would be working a lot, which also meant that a lot of the responsibilities around the home would be left to her, not because she's a woman, but because if I was going to be allocating all this time to grinding to build us a life and reach people for Jesus for 5 years, then obviously some other responsibilities would fall on her. And fast forward, in about 4 years, we managed to be able to accomplish so much, even less than what we thought that it would take. And we had reached thousands of people on the internet. And in that time, we had also started the world's first church for gamers. We had so many gamers around the world who would come to our stream and they would hear about Jesus and they were wanting more. They were wanting to grow, wanting to learn. They wanted to be a part of a church, but then they would go to churches in their area that I would tell them to find, and they would walk in with a Dungeons & Dragons shirt and they would get turned away. Churches were literally saying, you can't come here unless you change your clothes. And to be honest, I had more horror stories than I did good stories. And so I just decided if people can't find a church where gamers are welcome, well, then I'll start one for them. And in 2016, in the midst of all of that streaming success, we had not only become the world's first partner on Twitch who was openly sharing the gospel, but we had also become the world's first gamer pastor, launching the world's first church for gamers. And as you can imagine, it was a lot. It was a lot of responsibility. We had really pioneered a method of evangelism and ministry to where other people wanted to be able to follow in those footsteps, and people started contacting me, hey, how do I do this? Can I get some help? And the need began to grow, and I wanted to be able to help so many people. But what I didn't realize was in my attempt to help so many people, little by little, I was harming myself. Then 2020, as you know, COVID hits, and every church in the world wants to learn how to do online church. What used to be crazy now seemed genius. Before, I was that guy that everybody thought was out of their mind. And if we'll be honest, I am just a little bit. But now all the people that had rejected my idea wanted to learn how to do my idea. And people started reaching out, will you help us? Will you help us? Will you help us? And I wanted to help, and I wanted to serve, and I wanted to help people. But all while I was helping people, what I didn't realize was that I was harming myself. I was working so many hours a week, and my wife and I had talked about we're going to do this for 5 years, for a season, to build something. But then what I didn't realize is that when the season was over, the goal was accomplished. We could make a living. Our family was provided for, and we were reaching people at a great pace. But what I didn't realize was that the season had become a lifestyle. To be honest, one I didn't know how to stop. I had been grinding so much, it became a new way of life, and the amount of time that our family had agreed to, we were past that point. 7 years in, and it posed the question, when is enough enough? And what had happened to me without even really realizing was that the grind made me blind. I want you to hear my heart. My main priority is to share the gospel and tell people about Jesus. But as a man, I also want to provide for my family. So being a full-time streamer, but also being a full-time pastor, carrying 2 full-time jobs, it was a lot, but it allowed me to make 2 full-time incomes, allowed me to provide for my family. But what I was so blind to was the fact that I wanted to give my wife a life where she didn't have to worry about debt, where she didn't have to worry about how we're going to pay for our groceries. I wanted to work hard to give her that life. But the reality is I was so blind. I didn't realize that I was giving my wife a life she never asked for, rather than giving the one she was asking for, to where her husband was around more often. I was so blind, I didn't realize that even when I was around, I was so tired from the grind, that even when I was present, didn't mean I was really there. I was blind to the fact that because I was being kind towards my wife, meant I was being a good husband. But I learned obviously that it really means so much more. I was blind to the fact that some of you may know that my wife, who is an incredible worship leader, who music really is one of the things that brought us together, that my wife has really developed an incurable condition in her voice where she can really no longer sing. And to my wife, this was devastating. And I was blind to the fact that I thought I was there for her, but in reality, I wasn't. I was blind to the fact that although I had good intentions, I would try to make change and try to help out around more and be more present. And I would do really well for about a week. But I was so blinded by the grind that I didn't realize that after just a week's time, I would fall back into habits of grinding, helping so many other people, but not being there for my number one responsibility, which was to help my wife. I was blind to the fact that with good intentions, I wanted to encourage all of us as husbands to grow and be there and be better, all while being so blind I didn't realize that I wasn't even being the husband that I was encouraging other people to be. I had good intentions, but as some of you can understand, even with good intentions, you can still do the wrong thing. I was blind to my own pride, not even realizing that I was working so hard, relying on myself rather than relying on God and His power and His provision, understanding that it's not by might, not by power, but by my Spirit, says the Lord. I was blind to the fact that my relationship with God was diminishing, but here was the lie that I believed. Just because I talk to God every day doesn't mean that I'm having intimacy with Him. You see, when people's lives fall apart, oftentimes people ask, hey, were you spending time in prayer? But for me, the answer actually would be yes. But the problem is that although I was talking to God and I was spending time in prayer, my entire prayer life, without me even realizing because I was blind, had really come down to this: God, use me to do your work. God, I am your servant. Will you use me to do your work? And that's a great prayer to pray. But it can't be the only prayer you pray. Just like in a marriage, husbands, your wife didn't marry you so that she could have a dishwasher. She didn't marry you so she could have someone to help around the house. She didn't marry you so she could have someone to do work for her. She married you to be close to you. In the same way, I didn't even realize that my relationship with God had become me just doing work for him. I would go to him in prayer and I would talk to God. God, I want to do your work. Use me, use me. I'm talking to you. I'm spending time with God. But so blind that my intimacy was diminishing. The grind made me blind. I was blind to the fact that I thought I was being a good husband. I thought I was giving my wife what she needed. But in reality, I wasn't. I was blind to the fact that I believed that the grind wouldn't catch up to me. But it did. I was blind to the fact that I thought I was healthy. But in reality, I wasn't. One of the things that my counselors have been able to help me understand is that some people, when they're getting unhealthy, is little by little, slowly, they begin to crumble. You begin to see changes in their behavior. You begin to see things in their lives where things are maybe just slowly falling apart. But then there are other people who, to where everything seems fine, and they feel as though they're fine. And they keep walking down a road, the grind. All the while, they don't realize that they're being unhealthy. And they don't realize that that road eventually leads to an edge. And all the while they're walking, feeling as though they're fine, until one day, metaphorically and unintentionally, they walk right off the edge. And that was me. You see, to be honest, I didn't feel unhealthy. I didn't feel like my life was falling apart. I didn't feel that way. But just because I didn't feel a certain way doesn't mean that I was. You see, and that was me. I had the joy of the Lord. To be honest, I felt good. I wasn't faking the smile on stream. I was so blind to the reality of my life that I didn't even realize how unhealthy I actually was. But what led me to where I am now is the truth that when you're unhealthy, you make unhealthy decisions. And because of the state of my soul, I found myself in a position I shouldn't have been in. I made a decision I should have made because I was unhealthy. But all of us would be foolish to believe that when we make decisions that we make, that there isn't a route that needs to be explored. And as we explore my road to restoration, what I've been doing is getting down to the root and asking this question: how did we get here? And why am I even making this series as a whole? Because my prayer is that you will ask yourself a very important question. How is my soul? My prayer is that I've been taking a deep look into my own life, that you'll take a deep look into yours. How are you doing? But really, how is your soul? How is your joy? How is your peace? Are you slowly falling apart? Or without even knowing it, are you walking towards that edge? Because my experiencing of ministering to people all over the world, what I've realized is that many people's lives look similar to mine. That they're grinding, working hard, caught up in the responsibilities of life, that you might actually be more unhealthy than you realize. But here's the good news. No matter where you find yourself today, whether you feel whole or unhealthy, whether you might realize it or not, all of us are in need of Jesus. And I want to challenge all of you and encourage all of you today to run to the healer. Are you tired? Are you weary? Jesus says, come to me, all who are weary, and I will give you rest. And my hope is that through this series to be a voice to you that I wish I had had for myself, for someone to ask me, how's your soul? Are you healthy? Analyze your heart, because you might not be as healthy as you think. And if you are, the solution is simple. Run to the healer. Run to Jesus. And throughout this series, I want to use my life to help encourage you in so many of the principles that I've learned through failure, to help you from making mistakes that I've made, to help you understand that the mindset that I had, that we need to grind, the grind is not as beneficial as we think it might be. And God has been teaching me not to rely on myself, but to rely on Him. And so as we walk through this new series, I want to challenge and encourage you. Even the next episode is going to be the cure to the grind, decide to abide. As we learn, what does it really mean to analyze our hearts and to go to Jesus and allow Him to really bring true healing and restoration to our souls, so you can experience life and life more abundant, so that you too can also experience what it means to be restored. And so if you want to follow along in the journey and the road to restoration, I want to encourage you, subscribe to this channel, like this video, share it with a friend that you know could use it, but also join me on my live stream, link in the description below, where I'll also be talking more in depth about this journey. Be sharing more information that honestly would have just been too much and too long to fit in this video, but I want to use my life to hopefully be an encouragement to you. I don't just want you to learn from my successes, but I want you to learn from my failures so that you too can experience what it means to be restored.